Dear ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to say a few words in connection with the so-called pro-Palestinian and not so-called anti-Israeli meetings and manifestations that are ravaging the whole of the Western world, including Western and Central Europe, North America, and of course Canada, which is part of North America. To be quite honest with you, I'm reluctant to get involved in this issue, mainly because I'm not a Jew, not at all. On the other hand, I cannot keep silent, and I will tell you why. And actually, the reason I'm recording this short video is that I have one question, which I will address a few minutes later. But first, about those manifestations. Here is how they look in my town where I live. By the way, nota bene, I hope you have noticed that most of those participants are not Arabs, not Muslims, not Palestinians.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
By the way, why am I smiling and chuckling when I said Palestinians? In fact, there is no such nation as the Palestinians, as it had been invented in the KGB. You don't believe me? Please don't trust me. Check it yourself. But any Arabist and any Arab, including those who claim to be Palestinians, will tell you and confirm the following statement. There are many Arab dialects, sometimes mutually not understandable. But the Arabs of Israel, Palestine, Syria and Jordan are speaking exactly the same dialect. No distinctions. So those are sort of one people, but I don't want to get too deep into that issue. I also find it a little bit funny. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I think Palestine is already free. Palestine is part of Israel, and Israel is a free country, right? And Arabs over there have the same rights as the Jews, and probably even more than that. But okay, let's leave that aside.
And who's saying that was that?
So, I already mentioned that most of the participants of those manifestations are young and old Anglo-Saxons. The funniest part is that they have absolutely no idea where Palestine is, which river and which sea is kept in mind. Many people ask them, what's the name of the river? No idea. What's the name of the sea? Maybe Black Sea, not Mediterranean, of course. And too many people ask those questions. I asked my own question when I approached them. I said, okay, and Israeli occupation of Palestine. Okay. But could you please enlighten me, where is Israel proper? Nobody could answer that question, and many of them were becoming aggressive. By the way, those guys, the manifestators, are so well organized. When you start talking to one of the younger guys, immediately someone more or less adult is approaching and starts asking, why are you asking that question? Huh? What do you want? What do you want? They're becoming very aggressive. Not to mention that the participants of all those manifestations are really well paid. Well, not well paid, they're paid $30 per hour as far as I know. I asked some of them. And that's not bad these days. And by the way, those young and old people who have nothing to do with the Arab world and with the Middle East have no idea what are they trying to struggle for. In fact, they are fighting for Hamas. And in Canada, I'm not allowed to say that Hamas is a terrorist organization, so I'm not saying that. But they are also supporting, willingly or unwillingly, the massacre of October this year that occurred in Israel and that was performed by Hamas and its supporters. And you probably know that Dozens and dozens of people were brutally murdered. Well, murder itself is a brutal thing, but the way they were murdered, I'm not going to go into the details, but that's really, really shocking and reminds me of the darkest pages of the medieval history, as well as of the Armenian and Greek genocide during the First World War. But again, I don't want to go into the historical details. I have another question. We have seen all those manifestations. In fact, the manifestations are fighting for the destruction of Israel and sometimes for the mass murder of Jews. Mass murder. It's a clear example of hate speech. For some reasons, nobody so far was kept responsible for that. But this is not my question. My question is, why are there no counter manifestations? The manifestations of Jews and other Israeli supporters. Well, there are quite a few Jews in all those big cities. I mean, Jewish communities. There are quite a few people who migrated to Canada from Israel. And so far I've seen only 2 people with Israeli flags. One was definitely from the Middle East, and he was probably an Israeli Jew, and he walked by those pro-Palestinian manifestators accompanied by 2 cops who were probably protecting him from being lynched. And another guy was a blonde guy with a little Israeli flag who was also walking by that demonstration by himself. And that was it. However, there are pretty strong and multiple Jewish communities in Victoria and in other cities of Canada, America, and Western Europe. They have synagogues. In Victoria, I think they have 1 or 2 synagogues, I'm not so sure. And they seem to be quite well organized. A few years ago, when there were here manifestations against the lawyer Doug Christie. You probably don't know who that guy is, but I know, and I knew him personally, and I would like to share this with you. Doug Christie was a lawyer, an advocate of the separation of Western Canada from the rest of the country, and also he was the president of the so-called League for the Free Speech. And that was his major sin in the eyes of those who were against him. And another sin of his, the so-called sin, was that in his capacity of a lawyer, he was acting on behalf of possible Nazi war criminals who were taken to Canadian courts, and like any person, if he is a suspect or not suspect, has right to use the service of a lawyer. Doug Christie was acting on their behalf as a lawyer, and that was his another sin. So each and every time he was appearing in the streets of Victoria, or if he was trying to organize something with his League for Free Speech, there were hundreds and hundreds of people coming there, making scandals, insulting him, spitting in his face, and so on and so forth. Many of them were Jews or claiming to be Jews. Many of them were wearing yellow David stars, like it was happening during the Nazi occupation. They were yelling, "Nazi, Nazi," and surprisingly, they were blaming him for standing for the freedom of speech. And by the way, he believed that if we have freedom of speech in Canada, and we do have it officially, everybody has right to believe or not believe into anything, including the Holocaust. Let me tell you, Doug Christie was not a Holocaust denier, not at all. And of course, neither am I. As a person of partially German background, of course, I would love not to believe in it, but I know that the Holocaust took place during the dark years of Nazi domination in Europe. As a historian, I've seen original documents, and I know that that happened. However, from the point of view of Doug Christie, and it's hard to argue, if someone doesn't want to believe in something, no matter what, he's supposed to be allowed to say, yes, I don't believe in this or that. It's probably not so good if you don't believe in such things as the Holocaust or Armenian genocide or something like that. But in the society which boasts freedom of speech, it shouldn't be illegal. That was one of the reasons people were attacking him. So people were well organized. There were hundreds of people manifesting against Doug Christie and his League for the Freedom of Speech. And now, when there are crowds demanding the destruction of Israel and demanding, in fact, mass murder and extermination of Jews in the Middle East, there are no counter-protests. The Jewish community is silent. I wonder why. Quite honestly, quite frankly, I don't have an answer to that question. Maybe you do have. I would love to read that in your comments. That's all I wanted to say. Just wanted to share with you that I'm puzzled and confused. And that's more or less it. Wishing you all the best and hope to record some more videos in the next future. Bye-bye.